Hello, this is Whitney from the Northlands Library Computer Center. You may remember that we used to offer in-person computer classes on topics such as Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and cloud computing. We are currently unable to provide the same class content at the library, but we can bring the class content to you in video format so that you can learn from the comfort of your own home. In this class, you will get to practice your Excel skills by making changes to an existing Excel spreadsheet. More specifically, we will learn how to transform a spreadsheet with basic text information, like this, into a personal budget template, like this. To get a better idea of which Excel features we will use, here is the class agenda. We will open up an existing Excel spreadsheet, review parts of the Excel screen, work with changing the text in different ways, make adjustments to the worksheet to see our data better, do things as we progress with our document, learn some time-saving features, perform mathematical calculations, learn how to use worksheets, learn how to print the document, and use the help feature. As you can see, we will go through some common basic features of Excel. I will demonstrate these features using the 2016 version of Excel, and you can still follow along and use these same features if you have a different version of Excel, such as 2013 or 2019. After going through these features together, I hope you feel more comfortable using them when you create your own Excel spreadsheets for personal and work purposes. Before we begin working with the spreadsheet together, I would also like to note that if you are going to use this video to get hands-on practice, you will need Microsoft Excel installed on your device, and you will need to use some basic typing and mouse skills such as left-clicking once or twice inside of a cell, left-clicking and dragging across and down the screen to select cells, right-clicking a cell, move the mouse around the screen, and using certain keyboard keys such as Shift, parentheses, and arrow keys to do certain tasks. Are you ready? Then let's get started. Let's start off with getting an introduction to Excel by opening an existing spreadsheet, reviewing the parts of the Excel screen, and summarizing the things you can do. Let's get started by opening Excel on the screen. I'll left-click on the magnifying glass icon in the lower left corner. In the search box, type the name Excel, and when the name appears at the top of the list, left-click it once, and then left-click Blank Workbook to see what an empty workbook looks like. Then I'm going to open an existing workbook with some basic text. I'll click the File menu, make sure that the Open option is selected, click the Browse folder. I want to go to the Documents folder on my machine, and then click the spreadsheet in the list called Budget Text Only. I'll left-click it, and then left-click the Open button. And here's a basic spreadsheet with just text. Here's an overview of Excel so you know the type of things that you can do. Excel allows users to organize data, perform mathematical equations, link information together, and create charts of data. All of the commands in Excel are listed in this ribbon, and they contain separate tabs. So right now the Home tab is selected, and to make the commands easier to find, commands that are grouped or related to each other are listed in the sections that have names. So clipboard, font, alignment, etc. So for example, the font grouping contains commands that allow you to make changes to your text. You can click on the other tab names to see other options. The Insert tab allows you to add various types of non-text content to your page, such as graphs and pivot tables. If you click the Page Layout tab, you can see options to alter how your page prints. If you click Formulas, you can see the tools in the menu that help Excel do the math for you. When you click Data, you access commands that help you organize and summarize the data in your workbook. You can click Review to access tools such as the spelling and grammar check, or click the View tab, which allows you to change how the page appears on your screen. I'm going to click back on the Home tab because that contains the most frequently used, the most frequently accessed commands in Excel, and those are the ones we are going to focus on in the lesson today. Moving down to the center of the screen, let's go through the parts that we'll be working with today. So Excel is divided up into columns, which are organized alphabetically, and they are vertical, A, B, C, D, E, etc., and rows, which are listed horizontally and numerically in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And the spots where the columns and the rows combine are called cells. So where C, the column C comes, and the row 5 intersect, this is cell C5. And whenever you left click on a cell, it has a green outline, and that indicates that it's the cell that you chose. And you can see what cell it is because you can look here in the left corner called the name box, and that gives you an idea of what the cell is called. And while we go through this Excel lesson, we're going to be using these cell names to go through and add data. We're not going to use numbers as much. So you can always check this name box to see what cell we're referring to. If you need to move around the page and go to different cells, you can use your mouse button and just move your mouse around the page. And this white cross appears, and that lets you know that you can click on any cell that you need to in order to click it and access it. In order to type text in the cells, you would move your mouse cursor to a particular cell and then left click twice on it. So not only does it give you the green outline to indicate the cell that you've selected, but there's a blinking cursor that allows you to type in either text or numbers. So that's what you'll need to use in this first part of the lesson. Before we continue, I would like to make you aware that because I am unable to provide you with an exact copy of this spreadsheet to use during this lesson, you will have to type some starter information on your own. If you have Excel installed on your device and feel comfortable doing so, please feel free to use it to type the information that you see on the screen. You can click or tap the pause button, the one with the 2 vertical lines, to freeze the video screen so that you have time to look at the text and type the text on your own without missing any of the class content. After you finish typing the text into your blank spreadsheet, please click or tap the play button, the one with the right-facing triangle, to resume this lesson. Next, we're going to make some changes to the text that we typed by doing things to make the text stand out and easy to read, and then make some adjustments to the Excel worksheet to make the information easier to work with later on in the lesson. Now I'm going to start working with the text in this budget. You can either follow along by watching, or if you would like to get hands-on practice, you could have typed in this information on your screen and go through it with me. So the first thing is, I see under the miscellaneous row, I would like to add another category in my budget. So I will need to add another row in order to type some information under that miscellaneous column. In order to add a row under miscellaneous, I'll have to type on row 20 first, because Excel will add a row above wherever you click. So once I click to select the row, I can see the row is selected because the first cell will not be highlighted in gray, but the other cells will. But there still is a green highlight around the row, which indicates it's selected. After I select the row, I'm going to move up to the cells grouping and click on the arrow underneath Insert. Then in the list, I'm going to click Insert Sheet Rows, and Excel will know to add one row above the debt column and under the miscellaneous column. And now here under miscellaneous, I'm going to add a category. I'm going to add childcare as a miscellaneous category, but you can add whatever category you want, something that would not fit under the existing categories in the list. Next, I'm going to look up at my columns, and I see I have a difference column, but I'm not able to make use of that column because I'm missing some information. I would like to know what I actually projected to spend each month and compare it to what I spent each month. That's what the difference column would do. So I need to add a column between B and C where I'm going to put what I would like to spend each month. So in order to add a column, I'm going to left click column C, and once again Excel will add a column to the left of the column that I clicked on. I'll go back to the cells grouping, click on the insert option again, and this time click Insert Sheet Columns. And now I have an extra column between category and monthly actual spent. So I'm going to click twice in this column. I'm going to click twice on cell C1 and add a title for this column. And this title will be called Projected Monthly Budget. And then I'll left click outside of the cell after I finish typing. Next, I have a lot of text here and it's a little bit hard to read. So I'm going to increase the text size to make it easier to read on the screen. To do that, I'll just select the entire table because I'm going to make changes to all the text on the screen. The easiest way to select your entire table is to click on this shaded triangle below the name box and between the rows and the columns in the left corner. I'll left click on that once. You can see the table is selected. I'll move up here to the font size option where it says 11. And then I'm going to click on the list and choose size 16 font. So you can see that the text is easier to read. However, the text that is bigger now does not fit in the cells. So there's a way that we can change the size of the cells so that the text can fit in them without bleeding over into the next cell. There's a couple ways to do that. One way that I'll start with is use my mouse button to move to the line between two columns. In this case, I'll move between A and B, and I'll see this black cross with arrows pointing to the left and right, and that allows me to change the size of my cells. So once I see that cross, I'm going to use my mouse button to left click, hold it down, and then physically drag my mouse to the right because you're physically making the cell bigger. And you can see if you moved your mouse cursor to the next line between the different columns, you could access that same option. However, if clicking and dragging is a little bit difficult for you, there is a shortcut in Excel. You can still move your mouse cursor to the line between the columns and get that black cross. But instead of left clicking and dragging, you can left click twice on that line, and Excel will automatically resize your cells so that all of the information in that column will fit, which it did. So it'll increase the text size, the row size, to the longest bit of text, which will be down here. So it will make everything fit. So that's what I'm going to do for the remainder of the columns. I'm going to move up between the cells, columns, and click twice whenever I see that black cross. So D and E. So now everything should be able to fit in the cells without bleeding over into the next cell. Next, we are going to make some of the text stand out because right now it looks the same and it'll be hard to figure out where things go. So first I'm going to click the cell B5 where income total is, and I would like to make that just that cell bold. So I'll move up to the font grouping, left click the B to make that text bold. Next, I'll do the same thing for some cells at the bottom. I'm going to use my scroll bar on the right side and click and drag it down to the bottom of the screen. And I'm going to click on expenses total and net income total. So I'm going to click on expenses total first and then hold my mouse button down and drag down to net income total. So I'm able to select both of those at once because they're connected together. And now I can move back up to the B and click bold. Now that I've bolded some of my text, I'm going to move up to the top of my screen again by clicking and dragging the scroll bar, and I'm going to make some changes to the titles here at the top. So first I want to make some changes to the income section. So I'm going to left click the word income and then click, hold my mouse button down and drag across to the end of the table, which will be E2. So right now A2 to E2 is selected, and I want to make the text move in the center. So I will click this merge and center option under alignment. So I'll be able to see the title of this particular section. And then I want to make it stand out a little bit from the text below. So I'll move to this text fill bucket option. I'll click the arrow to the right and I'll choose the lightest orange in the list. I'll left click that light orange square. And now you can see the income section is clearly delineated with some color at the top and some bold at the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing to make the expenses section stand out. So I'll left click A6, hold my mouse button down and drag across to E6. I'll center the text within that selection by left clicking merge and center. And since that same color was already there from the last time I chose it, I can just left click on that paint bucket and the same color will appear in this row. I'll left click on a cell outside of the text to see the changes. In order to make this table easy to work with now that the text is bigger and it doesn't fit on one screen, I'm going to move down to the bottom where this zoom level is and left click this minus sign until it reads 70%. So now you'll be able to see all the text on one screen without having to scroll down. Finally, the last thing we are going to do to make this table more visual and easy to work with before we add the numbers is to create this text into a table. So what I'm going to do is click on A1, physically drag across to to E1. And then without lifting up my mouse button, I'm going to drag down to the end of my table so far, which will be right here where net income is, and that is E26. So I'll let go. Then here under the styles grouping, there's a format as table option. I'll left click the arrow and then choose the second option in the light orange list, table style light 10. I'll left click that. Excel is asking me to define the limits of my table, which I already did, which is A1 to E26. And my table does have headers, which are the month, year, category, those column headings at the top. So as long as that's checked, I'm good. I'll click OK. And then I'll click outside of the table to see what the table looks like. So now it'll be easier for me to enter my numbers in now that there are some visual references between the categories and the column names. In order for me not to lose my work and the changes I just made, I do want to save my work back to the machine. So I'm going to click on the word File and then left click Save As. I want to choose on the computer where it's going to go, so I'll click Browse, and I'll make sure to stay under the Documents folder of my machine. So if you're saving something for the first time, this box will automatically pop up, but I would like to rename this information now that it has more than just plain text. So under the file name, I'm going to click and drag and then delete the name that's in there and type in a new name. I'll call it My Budget. And then I'll left click the Save button. And now all my changes are saved under My Budget here in Excel. So now what I would like everyone to do is type in some amounts in the projected monthly budget column and the monthly actual column. You can use real numbers or you can make them up, but we just need some numbers to work with during the remainder of the lesson. The only columns and rows I don't want you to fill in are everything under debt. So A21, everything here selected. So nothing under the debt column and nothing under expenses total or net income total, because we're going to work with those cells in the next part of the lesson. So please fill in some numbers everywhere above the selected cells so that we can then save some time and start working with the numbers. Next, we are going to finish setting up our budget template to prepare to do the mathematical calculations, and we're going to use some shortcuts within Excel to make it easier to work with large amounts of information. Now we're going to work with adding some text into our spreadsheet. So make sure that the same columns that I have highlighted are blank. So cells D3 and D4 and D5 should be blank because we're going to work with those next. And then cells D22 to D25 should also be blank. So should D26 and D27. And C26 and C27. So all the cells that you see here that are blank, we're going to put numbers in ourselves during this lesson. So please make sure that your spreadsheet looks a little bit more like this with some of the numbers filled in so that we can save some time, and then we'll work with the cells that are blank. So first thing we're going to do is manually type in the numbers for the income section. So if you have a salary, your income should stay the same. So that's why we're going to type in the same number that's under the projected budget into the monthly actual spending. So I'll left click in D3 and type in the same number that I see in C3. And then I'll do the same thing to D4. I'll left click twice to get my blinking cursor and type in the same number that I see in C4. And then left click away to stop typing. Now we're going to use a shortcut though to move all the way down to the bottom where we're going to add some more text. So instead of moving your mouse button down and left clicking, you can actually use your arrow keys on your keyboard. There should be arrow keys to move up, down, left, and right. So as long as you have left clicked in a cell to see the green outline, you can use the arrow keys to move on your screen. So I would like to move down to D23 to add some information in the debt column. So I'm going to use my down arrow and just keep clicking it, and you can see the selection cursor moves down. So here under debt, so debts tend to stay the same for fixed bills that don't change each month. We're going to use a shortcut to copy the same number from one cell to the next. So for things that stay the same and don't change month per month, what you can do is, actually I'll move over to C22, and when you select a cell with text in it, you can see there is a dark green square in the lower right corner that appears, and that is a tool that you can use. It's called autofill, and it's a shortcut you can use to automatically copy contents from one cell to the next as long as they're connected to each other. So for instance, I want to copy the same number, 125, from C22 to D22 without having to click and type in the text manually. So I'll move my selection cursor to that square. If I put it on top of the square, I'll see a black cross. Once I see the black cross, I'm going to left click my mouse button, hold it down, and physically drag it to the next cell. And Excel will automatically autofill, auto-populate the same number into the connected cell. I'm going to do the same thing by moving up to C21 because my childcare bill would stay the same. I'll move my mouse to the autofill square, left click and drag to D21. And then I'll move down and then use the left button to go to C23 and autofill student loans, click and drag, and move down to C24 and autofill the mortgage payment. So that can be an easy tool to use without having to repeatedly copy numbers into connected cells. That's called the autofill tool, and it's located in the lower right corner of a selected cell. Autofill can also work for other things like dates and months. So it's a shortcut that is built into Excel. So for example, if I click here outside of the table and type the month of January, the autofill cell appears, and I can click and drag to the right, and Excel recognizes that pattern and will automatically fill in the months wherever I drag. It could be across or down. So there are certain patterns that Excel recognizes that you can try and use the autofill for. I don't need this text here for this lesson, so I'm going to move up above the Home tab to the Undo button, which is the left-facing arrow, and I'll left-click that once and then twice because I don't need that text anymore. Next, what we're going to do, now that we have the basic numbers entered into our budget is we want to convert the numbers into currency because we're going to be working with money numbers instead of just plain numbers. There's a couple different ways to do that. We're going to add a visual element to the table and take it an extra step further than just adding a dollar sign, like you can see here. So first what we'll do is we'll highlight the table. So I'll left click A1, drag across to E1, and then drag down to E27, the end of the table, because all of those cells will need to add currency. Then we are going to click on the word general, which is a type of number format, which is what we've used so far. We're going to left click on that. You can see different number formattings in the list. We're going to go down to the bottom to see some more details. So left click more number formats. We're going to choose the currency category on the left and then choose how we want the currency category to appear. We're going to choose the second option in the list, which will show numbers in red if we've reached a negative amount. So that allows us to know if we've stayed under budget or over budget. So once I click that option, I'll also double check. I do want to see 2 decimal places in case I have to add cents, and I want the symbol to be an American dollar sign. I'll left click OK. And then now all of the numbers are formatted in currency so that whatever number I put in, Excel will automatically enter it in currency format. Then I'm going to save my work. Instead of going File, Save As, I'll use the option above the word File, that square, which is an easy way to save my existing changes. Now we are going to use some basic Excel formulas and functions to perform calculations on our template data. Now we are going to move on and work with some mathematical calculations within Excel by using formulas and functions. Formulas are mathematical expressions on cells that you define and you type in manually. And then functions are built into Excel, they're predefined and allow you to do automatic calculations without typing everything manually. So we are going to start off typing in formulas, and then we'll move on to using some simple Excel functions. First, we would like to total up our income for both the projected budget and the monthly actual spending. So first, I'll click on C5 to get that blinking cursor, and then I'm going to manually type in the formula for adding up C3 and C4. All formulas start with the equal sign, so I have to type that in first, and then I know I'm adding the contents in C3, so I'll type that in. And once I type in the cell, Excel will automatically highlight it so I can tell which cell it's working with. And then to add cells together, you'll use the plus sign. To do that, you'll press and hold the Shift key and then type the plus sign on your keyboard and then type in the next cell that you're adding, which is C4. I'll type C4 and Excel will color that one too so I can see the differences between the cells that I'm adding. And one thing to note is that when you're using formulas and functions, you do not type in the actual numbers, especially when numbers might change from time to time. So the easiest thing to do is type in the cell references. So whatever cell names appear in the name box, which is what we did, C3 and C4. And Excel automatically knows to add up the numbers in those cells that you defined. Then you can click away from the cell and Excel will automatically add up those numbers. We're going to do the same thing in D5. So I'll left click twice. type the equal sign, and this time type in D3, press the shift and plus sign, D4, and then left click outside of the table to see the total. And they're supposed to be the same, and they are. So that is how you manually type in a formula. You can manually type in different formulas such as adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, but we're just focusing on adding right now. I'm going to go up and click the undo button again because I want to show you how you can use a preset function to easily add up the sum of D3 and D4. So you'll still click in D5 and you'll start with the equal sign, but this time you're going to type the word sum, which lets Excel know that you're going to add numbers together. So after you add the function, you have to separate the cell references from the operation that you're doing, which is sum. So you'll add a parentheses. So you'll press the shift key and the 9 key where the open parentheses are. And then, since you've separated the operation, you're going to type in the cells that you're going to add. One easy way to do it, which is to keep track of which cell you're actually adding, is then to left click on the cell itself. Just left click once and Excel will recognize it and add it to the formula. You can then press shift and the plus sign again, and then left click D4, and then close the parentheses so you have your formula now. And this time you can press enter and Excel will add up the two cells that you clicked on. So next we are going to use the same function of sum to add up the information to get the expenses total and net income total for the projected monthly budget and the monthly actual spending. So let's use the arrow to move down. First to expenses total, and then I'm going to move left to the C column of expenses total. And we're going to use a function that will easily add up the expenses in row C, column C. So make sure to press the equal sign, type the word sum, open parentheses. You'll click on the first cell that you want to add, which is C7. And instead of having to click on all the next cells, all the way down to mortgage, to get the range that you want to add, you can press the shift key and then the colon key. And when you do that, you can see the colon after C7. That indicates that you want to select a range of cells that are connected to each other, either by row or by column, without having to click in each cell. Then I'm going to click in the last cell of the range that I want to add, which is mortgage under C24. I'll left click that, close parentheses, and press enter to get my total. Now that we've totaled the projected monthly budget expenses total in the C column, we want to have the same formula appear under the monthly actual spending column on the expenses total row. So we can use the same autofill tool that we used when entering the information in the monthly actual spending column. So if I click on C26, I can see the autofill square appear in the bottom right corner, and I can left click and drag over and autofill the formula. So you don't just have to, you can use autofill not just for copying numbers, but for copying the same formula into connected cells. So that makes it easier so that you don't have to manually type in the same function or formula multiple times. Now we are going to use another common calculation. We're going to subtract cell numbers in order to find the net income for columns C and D. So I'm going to click in cell C27. I'm going to start my formula with the equal sign and type the word sum and open parentheses. So sum does not always mean to add numbers together. It's the function you will use if you want to make a total or find the result of performing an operation between different cells. So I'll type in that cell function and then click on the cells that I want to subtract. I want to subtract C5, so I'll click C5. So I'll start off with C5 and I want to subtract C26 from that amount. So I'll click there. If I accidentally click the wrong number while I'm in a formula, it's okay. So I needed to get back to C5. I don't need to do anything but just left click C5 again and the number will appear. So if you see a dotted line and you're in the middle of creating a formula, you can just left click on the cell that you need. So I clicked back on C5. I'm going to type the minus sign, which is next to the 0 key in my keyboard, to get the subtraction. And then I will left click on C26. So I'm subtracting C26 from C5 to get how much of my net income I have left. Once again, if I accidentally click on the wrong cell, I just have to remember and left click on the cell that I do want to subtract. Once I have the two cells that I need to use, I'll press the enter key. And then the net income is totaled. And I can use the same autofill button to copy the formula for net income over to column D. So now I have the net income, so the extra money left over after all the bills for the month. The last calculation we are going to do is find the difference between our projected monthly budget and what we actually spent. So we're going to type in a formula that helps us determine that number. And the difference column is important because it can tell if you stayed over or under budget for the month. You can get an idea of where your money goes and figure out if and where you need to cut expenses. So we'll start by clicking on E7 and then we'll type in the function to calculate the difference. That will be equal, the word sum, open parentheses. We'll click on cell C7 for projected monthly budget, press the minus sign, and then press D7. So because we are in a table, that's why Excel is bringing up the column headings instead of the cell references. But you can see in the name box on top of the A column and underneath the clipboard group, you can see the cell reference right there in case you get lost. So I know I've clicked on the correct cells. I'll press enter and it gives me my difference. So since the text is in red, it means that I overspent for the month. And what I can do to make it easy is use this autofill button at the bottom, in the bottom right corner, to click and drag down all the way to E27. And it gives me an idea of what was overspent or underspent each month. The red text is overspent and the black text is underspent, so that means we're within budget. Now we are going to go through how to break up the information into worksheets to make the information easier to understand, analyze, and work with in the future. It would be very difficult to understand, analyze, and work with our data if we put 12 months worth of data on this one worksheet. So one thing we can do to make it easier on us if we wanted to add data for all 12 months of the year is to create 11 more worksheets and put in each month's worth of data into each worksheet. So worksheets act like chapters in a book or pages of a document where they're all linked in the entire workbook that we've been saving all along, but they're separated into their own area of the workbook. For example, we have a worksheet right here called In-Class Copy, and we can add more worksheets that will be included together in this one general workbook. First thing we're going to do is rename this existing worksheet into something that will be easier to understand if we're going to be using months worth of data. To change the name of the worksheet, you're going to right-click anywhere inside the title, and then when the list appears, left-click Rename. We want this to be the beginning month of our template, so we'll type in Jan space 21, and then left-click anywhere outside of the title to save the title of the worksheet. Next, we're going to add another worksheet to the right of our existing worksheet. To do so, we'll click the green circled plus sign, and that adds an additional worksheet. To make it easier so that we don't have to retype all of our information into the blank worksheet, we're going to then go back to the Jan 21 worksheet and right-click again. This time we're going to go to Move or Copy and left-click it. Then we would like to move the selected sheet to Sheet 1 and then left-click Create a Copy so that the data will be copied into that sheet, and then left-click OK. And then it adds that sheet to the right of our existing worksheet. To make the name less confusing, we will right-click that sheet then, left-click Rename, and we can type something like FEB for Feb 21, and then left-click away from the title. And we can continue to create more sheets along the bottom until we have one sheet for each month. And then all we'd have to do to make changes to the worksheet is double-click into a cell and type in new data. One easy way to do that so that you don't get confused is to go up here to the formula bar. The formula bar has the X, checkmark, and FX, and then a blank bar to the right. So if you click on a cell once and then left click up here in the formula bar, it may be easier for you to type in the number that you want to change so that you don't have to find the correct cell in your workbook. Now that you've copied the information into separate worksheets really easily, you will have to change the data to fit each month's expenses. An easy way to do that without getting rid of all the information is to left-click on a cell where you want to make changes. And then it may be easier to use the formula bar here at the top, which has the FX and then a long bar at the top. This way you can just focus on making changes to the number and not worry about all the information in the other cells. So I can left-click at the end of this number, get rid of the number that's false, put in a new number for January, and you can see it changes in the cell that I selected, which was C7. Now, if I left-click away from C7, it makes the change and it adjusted the expenses total and net income total. I could do the same thing for another cell. Just click, go up to the formula bar, make changes, click away from it, and my expenses total and net income total change. If I needed to do the same thing for February 21, I could. Click on a cell and make changes to the number at the top. So the nice thing about copying over worksheets is that everything is copied over, not just the text, but the formulas. So I don't have to change the formulas at all. Excel will automatically adjust the totals based on the formulas and text that were copied over. Next, we are going to go through the basics of setting up an Excel spreadsheet to get a printed copy. Once I finish typing and working with my data, I have the option to print it. To print my work, I can go up here to the File option, left-click it, and then left-click the Print option in the list. I'll make sure to select my printer first, and then make some changes to the setting options below. I'll click the arrow where it says Print Active Sheets. I have the option to print just the sheet that I was working on, or my entire workbook if I have more than one worksheets. I'm going to leave it at Print Active Sheets, so it'll just print the sheet that's displaying on the right. Next, to make sure all of my data fits on the screen, I want to change the orientation. So I'll click on the arrow and left-click Landscape Orientation. So you can see more of my data will fit when the information is sideways in landscape. I'll keep it letter size and make changes to the margins, which is the white space on all 4 sides of the page. I'll left-click the arrow and choose the option that says Narrow. So that will allow me to fit more text on my page, and now I can see all of my columns. Lastly, I'll go here to the Scaling option, left-click the arrow, and I want to fit my entire worksheet on one page. So I'll click Fit Sheet on one page. And once I do that, I can see everything is ready to print correctly on one page. So I would left-click the Print square at the top. If I need to go back and make changes to my data in any way, I would left-click the arrow in the top left corner. Finally, we are going to review the help feature that you can use if you get stuck, get confused, or have questions while you're working in Excel. If I get stuck during my work or realize I need some help with Excel, I can use the built-in help feature. To access the built-in help feature, go next to the View menu and then next to the light bulb at the top of the screen. And the light bulb feature says, "Tell me what you want to do." Left-click anywhere on that phrase and it turns into a search box. For instance, if I forget where to go to insert a function, I can type that in the search box. Insert function, and then press enter, and Excel will automatically bring up the box that will allow me to insert a function. So if you have trouble finding tasks within all of the different tabs of commands, you can type in what you want to do in that box next to the magnifying glass, and Excel will bring it up for you as a shortcut. Or if you don't understand what a certain term means, such as autofill, you can ask that question. You can type, "What does autofill mean?" And then there's an option called Smart Lookup. If you left-click Smart Lookup, an Insights box appears on the right side of the screen, and it gives you more information about what autofill means, including a definition and when you can use autofill within Excel. Finally, for example, if you're working with functions and you realize you get some kind of error message or it didn't work the way you expected, you can type in the word error, and then you can click the option that says Get Help on Error, the search term that you typed, and it will bring up a list of help articles from the official Microsoft Excel help webpage. And you can find help articles. And if you find an article that you think would help you, you can left-click on the blue title and it will bring up the article from the webpage. If you would like a review of some of the features we talked about during this lesson, please click the bit.ly link in the video description. You can then open and access this PDF handout, with Excel keyboard shortcuts, basic Excel formulas, and examples of common Excel preset functions. Thank you for following along with me during the review of some of the main features of Microsoft Excel. If you would like more assistance with any of the features described in the video, please feel free to visit the following online resources on your own. You can type in support.microsoft.com to go to the official Microsoft support page for all of its products. You can click on the Excel icon on the page, and it will bring up all the different ways in which you can get help with Excel topics. You can type your question in the search box, click on a category at the top, and look at the different topics that are listed on the page. If you prefer to review some of the basic and intermediate features in a more structured format similar to an in-person class, you can type gcflearnfree.org in your address bar to access the Goodwill Community Foundation's website with free tutorials on various topics. To access the information about Excel, click on the Topics heading in the top right corner, and then under the Microsoft heading, you can click Excel. A list of tutorials appears next. You can click on the title of one of interest, such as Excel 2016, and you can see that the website breaks down each tutorial in a series of lessons. You can click on the bolded title of a particular lesson to open it on your screen. Some of the lessons provide you with a link to a practice document or spreadsheet where you can actually follow along and do the work with them. It provides explanatory videos and text and visual instructions as you go through the lesson. It'll give you tips on how to complete certain tasks. And then usually at the bottom of the lesson, there's a challenge where you get to practice and do some hands-on work to practice what you've learned in the lesson. If you would like to invest more time learning about Microsoft Excel or find material geared toward intermediate and advanced users, you can access our Gale Presents Udemy database available through the Northland Library website. From the Northland Library website, you can mouse over eLibrary and then left-click County eLibrary. When the list of databases appears, scroll down until you see the Udemy icon and then click the Go button. Udemy will ask you to sign in with a Microsoft or Google account and then your library card number. And once you do that, you have access to a whole bunch of training videos. You can type in a topic that you're interested in, such as the word Excel, in this search box at the top. And after you hit enter, you can narrow down your search results by level or topic. So if I click on intermediate, it will bring up videos for the intermediate user. If I click on the bolded title of a lesson, I can get a lesson summary, so what I'll learn, how many hours are available for the video, if it has downloadable resources and linked articles, and it'll break down each of the course content lectures into manageable chunks. If you're interested in participating in the lesson, you would click the Enroll Now button on the right. We can also help you. If you have more in-depth questions and would prefer to work with a Computer Center staff member, please contact us at 412-366-8100 extension 131 or email us at nplcomp@einetwork.net. We can work with you to schedule a one-on-one phone help session or provide you with information that may help you with your Microsoft Excel questions. That can be done via email or phone. Thank you for watching and good luck with your online learning.